Hi all, and welcome back to another review. The book I'll be sharing with you today is called Bad Monkeys by Matt Ruff. If Pulp Fiction, Nancy Drew, and The Bourne Identity had a baby, it would be this book. Let me just say, I didn't really know what to expect upon merely reading the back cover, which was only like 4 sentences long. But now that I've finished the book, that description is hilariously modest. I don't remember how I stumbled upon the book, but I was familiar with the author because he also wrote a book called Lovecraft Country that was also turned into an Amazon Prime limited series. I haven't read it or seen it, but I do own the novel, so that counts for something, right? I want to start by explaining a little bit more than I normally would for these reviews. I really feel like I have to if I'm going to do this book any kind of justice. So, at the onset of the novel, we're in what seems to be like an interrogation room in some kind of detention center or mental institution. And Jane, the woman that we're focusing on, we come to find out, has been charged with murder. The man she's speaking to, Dr. Vale, is like a psychiatrist who has come to interview her. She knows why she's there, she knows what she's done, but her responses to the doctor all are like just matter of fact. She feels no remorse, and when Dr. Vale asks her why she's in this current position, she says pretty bluntly that she killed someone she wasn't supposed to, and she told the arresting officer that she worked for a secret society that fights evil called Bad Monkeys. Think of like a vigilante style FBI that works to eradicate society's worst of the worst. The entire time we wonder if she's telling the truth or making it up or if she's just mentally unstable. So from here, the following chapter moves back in time to when Jane was a teenager, like 14 years old. The chapter after that comes back to the present day with Dr. Vale's ongoing conversation with Jane. And so on and so forth, bouncing between each, alternating between the past and the present. And in our first flashback, we learn that Jane has a brother named Phil, who's about 4 years younger than her. They have a semi rocky relationship because it's clear that their mother favors Phil exclusively. So Jane lashes out and ends up moving away to live with some other family members. And she gets in a lot of trouble in school and actually ends up getting into drugs. And one time while at school, she ends up following the janitor to an abandoned part of the building because she thinks she can steal some weed from him. Sounds like an amazing use of your time, 14-year-old child. So she hides so she's not spotted by him, and what she ends up finding there is that the janitor keeps like a telescope and a television and a couple of other shady things down there that makes Jane suspicious, obviously. So when the janitor leaves the building, Jane moves in to see what he's been looking at through that telescope, and it becomes abundantly clear that he's been spying on the girls' locker room. She sees this and she sees the television and puts two and two together. He is absolutely a predator, and Jane wants to do something about it. So, another fact that we find out around this time is that there's also a serial killer called the Angel of Death on the loose in the same area, preying on children. Coincidence? Jane doesn't think so. But what can she do about it? She's, 14 years old at this point? So this little dumbass decides to stow away in the janitor's windowless van because, of course, he has a windowless van. And so while she's snooping and digging around and looking for quote unquote evidence that this man is in fact the Angel of Death killer, he gets in the car to go home. Obviously, there's nowhere for Jane to go because not only is this van windowless, but it can't be opened in the back from the inside. She's trapped. So fast forward, and Jane ends up inside the janitor's house thinking he has no idea that she's in there. She calls the police, and when they arrive, she screams that the janitor is the Angel of Death killer. and no one believes her. The weapons and tools that she claimed to see in his van and in his house are miraculously gone. There's literally no proof that the janitor is who she thinks he is. And when nothing happens to him, Jane obsesses over it. And here's where the weird shit really starts happening. At home one night, Jane is working through a crossword puzzle where the answers are giving her special messages, like someone is trying to communicate with her. These clues lead her to find a very special gun hidden in her kitchen. It looks like a combination of like a taser and a toy water pistol. It's bright orange and is labeled an NC gun. We have no idea what that means, but when we do find out, it is crazy as hell. So she grabs the gun, oh my god, studies it and wondering how it got there and why then of all time. And remember, at this point, Jane is only 14 years old. So suddenly, of course, she sees the janitor who she was sure is the angel of death killer standing right in front of her at her house. She points the gun at him, and when she fires, it doesn't make a sound. She knows it fired because he's down. He's been hit with something. But instead of calling the police, this idiot goes upstairs and goes to bed because I guess murder makes you super sleepy. And when she wakes up the next morning, she rushes downstairs to the kitchen and there's no body. Weird, right? Well, in the next chapter, set in present day, Dr. Vale says that he checked up on her story about the janitor, and while, yeah, there's a record of him dying, there's no bullet wound in the body. In fact, the doctor says that the janitor's cause of death was ruled natural causes. NC. We find out the gun that Jane used, the NC gun, makes the target die of natural causes, so there's no way to trace it back to the shooter. It just looks like the janitor died of a heart attack. So again, we move back and forth in time over the next 20 years, seeing Jane's recruitment into this group called the Bad Monkeys. We learn more about her brother. We learn a lot more about what Jane is capable of. And I want to tell you so much more about what happens to and around Jane. But this book is so wild, I really want you to find it out for yourselves. I was engaged from page 1 of this book, and I finished it in 24 hours, literally only putting it down to go to sleep. For the most part, the plot was super unique, and as I'm sure you can already tell, it took me a while to figure things out sometimes, and to a certain degree, there were still things that I definitely didn't see coming. But when I did see them coming, those things were still pretty freaking awesome. It's like plot twist after plot twist after plot twist. It's science fiction-y without really feeling science fiction-y. Things you thought you knew turn out to be completely different. And by the end, I was like, what the actual hell did I just read? I saw in an interview with Matt Ruff, the author, that he got the idea for this novel after watching an episode of South Park, and I find that to be particularly hilarious. I have literally no idea how these two things intersect, and I don't think I'm going to try to figure it out. So with that, my recommendation for Bad Monkeys is devour it. You won't have a choice because it will not let you put it down, and those are my absolute favorite types of books. So thanks so much for sticking around, and I hope to see you in the next one. Now, go read something.